Your hosts are the Great Order and No White Guilt, and this is the one and only After Party. The crown winner of last week goes to Hallander, financially gifting $100. God bless you. Congratulations, and thank you so very much. In second place, a big second place, goes to the one and only Hireth, who financially gifted $50. Bless you as well. Promethean hails to the both of you, and congratulations. Folks, you can financially gift on Entropy at a cost of 15% to you. That, of course, goes to the wonderful people at Entropy to keep that software and program up and running. You can also watch the stream there, ask and vote on questions. You can also financially gift over on Cash App. The URLs for both are in the description below. Jared and I evenly share the financial gifts with our guests on the one and only The After Party. Now, today we have two crowd community favorites, Tiina and Eunice, on tap. Tiina, Eunice, please introduce yourselves to anybody in our STEAM community who may not know who you are. Tell them where they can find you, and then the one Mr. George will take us into the conversation.
So we are from Finland, nationalist activists, sometimes politicians too, event organizers and independent journalists. And Younes has been in the nationalist scene for, I think, from 2008.
Yeah, about 10 years.
And me from early 2016. So both of us have some years under our belt, but by no means are we veterans like Jared Taylor or anyone like that. And we do live streams in Finnish and sometimes in English too. Our main thing, how we differ from most like nationalist live streams, which are a pretty big thing in Finland, is that we do a lot of this investigative journalism. So we order court papers so that we can go through crime stories in detail in a way that the mainstream media doesn't want to do. And lately we took a 2-week trip to the Baltic countries like Latvia and Lithuania, because they were suffering this border crisis with Belarus. And Belarus was pushing migrants into these countries. And even though the countries pretty quickly closed the borders, the migrants still are attempting to get in by like walking through the woods and crossing rivers. So we went there to cover the what was going on. And I am very proud of what we got from that trip. Like, we did something that nobody in the Finnish mainstream media did. Like, we went to the Linkmenus migrant camp, and for almost 2 hours we interviewed these migrants and just let them speak and tell their stories. And it was pretty interesting, but I think we can get to more detail about that later. But that's pretty much who we are and what we do.
Yeah, you mentioned Hireth, and before this show, I used twice her music in my stream today. So
nice.
She's known here also.
Yeah, we're all supporting each other and playing each other's stuff. Yiz is here in the chat, and apparently she played a video of mine, new song, in her stream earlier today. So thank you, Yiz. And if anyone's interested to hear about the political campaign, Tiina mentioned Eunice had run for office, and we spoke all about that back at the very end of December. Tiina and Eunice here were our very last guests of 2020 on the After Party, December 29th, 2020. And that is on the afterparty.tv. So you'll be able to find this episode as well when it's posted there in a few days, and it'll have all of their links and things that we're talking about. So yeah, the two main things we will be discussing today are, as Tiina already mentioned, we really want to hear about the interviews in this quote unquote migrant camp, and also just have you tell us a little about the political situation, especially COVID restrictions in varying European countries. Finland, where you are, we've also had news that close by to you, up there in the north, Sweden and Denmark they're lifting their restrictions. it's interesting to see how there's different countries taking different paths. Just from speaking for myself, I think that adds a little bit of a silver lining to everybody out there that thinks there's like one group that's controlling everything and has it on lock. We've discussed this. I'm pretty sure Jason agrees with me that there are several competing factions behind the scenes. I'm sure it's chaotic and it's messy and people are vying for power. And something like this has never been done before. Yeah, it's scary to see this happening on a global scale and the technology involved, but a lot can go wrong as well. There's a silver lining in that, and the evidence in that there's a wide variety of responses in different countries, I think, is one of the things that speaks to that. But anyway, why don't we start with, take as much time as you need. We want to really hear about this interview at the camp in Lithuania that you went to. So how did you first find out about it, and how did you even have the access to be able to do this? Like, we'll start from the beginning. Just take us through the whole story. I know I'm interested, Jason's interested, and I'm sure the listeners were all really, really interested to hear about this.
Well, we heard reports that last year you had 78 migrants from Belarus to Lithuania, and this year they had over 4,000. So from 78 illegals to over 4,000, it meant that there was something going on. And even the mainstream media reported that their president, Lukashenko, was shipping migrants from all over the place and sending them to the western border, to Latvia, Lithuania, and even Poland. And so we decided that if it was possible, with the help of our viewers, to go there, we would go there. And our viewers helped, so we were able to drive there. And it was a road trip, about 2,500 miles. So we went there and we tried to find the places. We found some of them, but they wouldn't let us in. So Tiina sent an email to the Interior Ministry, and they said, okay, you can go to these places. The place you were in, it's too dangerous. You cannot go there, but here's a list of other places you have clearance to go to. And we went there, and we spent 2 hours interviewing these people, and it was all live streamed. You can find the replay on Odysee, on my channel, odysee.com/@jlokka. And it's the same stories that are given through the mainstream media, but with a different perspective, that we don't buy their lies. And they are very first they were very welcoming, that okay, yes, now the Western media is coming, but then they found out, okay, they got blackpilled because we were challenging them. They said that, yeah, I flew in from Istanbul to Minsk, and at that point we said, okay, so you have a passport, or how did you enter the plane? And they said, no, they made up different stories, and they lied about their age. The first guy was a Kuwaiti guy who claimed to be 15, but I don't know, he was probably 25. And it's funny because he was Kuwaiti, and he said that he cannot get an ID from the Kuwaiti government. But whatever, the guy is from the Kuwait, so that's near Iraq, and it's a very rich country. We are always told that the so-called far-right parties in Europe always say that we have to help them in their countries. But how do you help this oil-rich country that is among the richest countries in the world? They are richer than Finland. So how are we supposed to help these people? And all their stories were basically lies and stupid stories that, if true, of course, they are very sad, and it is a tragedy that these people are now locked in Lithuania. But the reason we were able to get in there is that those countries, they are still sane. meaning that if you send an email to their government, they will accept you. In Finland, this would be impossible because
Yes.
our government is full on leftists, communists, and they know us, so they will never let us speak with this.
And also
people.
in Finland, the asylum centers are being run by the Red Cross and like these asylum activists, refugees welcome people. So they never let anyone critical near the migrants. But there was a lot of outrage among Finnish left wingers about our interviews at the camp. That, oh my God, these people are like pretending to be journalists and infiltrating these camps, posing as journalists. That how is this possible? And they kept tagging like all sorts of random offices of Lithuania that they just happened to find with a Twitter search, and that had nothing to do with the situation. And they just didn't realize the cultural differences because, of course, like the Lithuanian and Latvian officials and government, they follow the international media and they know what sort of stories they get from the liberal journals. They get stories in which these countries are smeared, and these liberal journals spread lies about border guards beating up migrants with no evidence. They also claim that these countries are like trampling on human rights. So when I sent my request to the Ministry of Interior or the State Department, I sort of made it clear without saying it straight out that we are nationalists, so that it would increase our chances of getting the permits because or the press access, because. And I think I said something like the main theme of our coverage is like the cyber warfare from Belarus, and how most of these people coming in don't really qualify for an asylum. So I sort of made it clear that we are not liberal journals, so that it would be easier for us to get the press access, because of course a government will rather let in journalists that won't smear their country, that won't claim that they are keeping migrants in horrid conditions and trampling on their human rights and beating them up and all of these sorts of lies. So of course they would rather let like nationalist-minded journals in. And it was also funny to follow the Finnish media, who at the same time were only shooting from outside these camps and complaining that the guards won't let them speak to the asylum seekers. And none of them had realized that, yeah, you can actually apply for a press clearance from the Ministry of Interior. So they are really that dumb in the mainstream media that they didn't understand that, yeah, you just send an email to the State Department and maybe they'll give you a press clearance, so you won't have to stand there outside the gates and complain.
The German media, Deutsche Welle, they had sent 2 Iraqi journalists living in Germany. They had sent those people. They were almost detained by the Lithuanian guys, but they explained that no, we are journalists from Germany, and they had to wait for 3 hours for the clearance. We got it in less than 2 hours. And in those countries in Eastern Europe, they really have a free media, unlike here in the West. The police, they are very friendly with us. In Finland, the police are our enemy. There we were looking for the place. We stopped somewhere and the police asked, they asked what we are doing there. We said that, yeah, we are looking for this migrant camp and we want to interview these people. And the police laughed. He said it will be difficult to interview them because they are always fighting. And they are very aggressive. And I said, okay, but can you show us the way? And he said, yeah, just follow us. We are going there anyway. And we had an escort by the police to find this one of these camps. And so in Finland, that would never happen. In Finland, the police, they are very violent against us, and they would
like they would have looked for an excuse to detain us so that we can't get anywhere near the migrants. And the base situation when we got to the camps was that a lot of these migrants had been there for a month or two, and they clearly had very unrealistic ideas about how the asylum process works, that they a lot of them seem to think that they can just walk across Latvia or Lithuania to any country they choose. And of course, those countries won't let them do that. That's against the Dublin Agreement. Second of all, they apparently thought that once they get into the country, if they apply for an asylum there, they will get a decision pretty much immediately. So guys who had been there for a few weeks complained to me that they hadn't even been interviewed for their asylum process. So they clearly didn't have a realistic idea of how long the process actually takes, because it can take years. And
so this whole situation has started because there's some kind of gay op in the Belarus, that Lukashenko is not backing down. For example, the COVID situation, I believe that last year Lukashenko said that just take a shot of vodka if you feel something, and he didn't. There's, I believe, no restrictions there at the beginning. I don't know, I haven't followed the Belarusian COVID situation, but the European Union, there were some feminist marches and some stupid women whining there, but Lukashenko did not stop it. So the European Union has put some restrictions on their country. So as a revenge, Lukashenko has shipped in some migrants and tries to push them to the European Union. But luckily, those countries, they are not soft. So they are patrolling the border. And when the first live stream we did was when we in the middle of a forest road, a rocky road, we saw 3 border guards and a row of Iraqi so-called migrants there, and they were very fearful there. So, and when they catch them, they are put in these closed camps. And for example, the people we interviewed there, they had entered the country in July already. So this started way before even the mainstream media started to report on this. And the thing is that, as I said, last year in Lithuania, they had caught 78 illegals. This year, over 4,000. And 1,500 of these have applied for asylum, because what they are told is, don't apply for asylum in Lithuania. Try to go to Poland or Germany, because in Germany you will get the asylum, but in Lithuania they are racist, they are white nationalist, whatever. So from these 1,500 asylum applications, 300 have been processed, and all of them are negative decisions. So they will probably be deported back to Belarus. But there have been not fights, but some showdowns. You have the Belarusian soldiers, the Polish soldiers, and they are blocking the way to either side. So it's a very interesting thing, because they are flown into Minsk, which is the capital, and from the capital there's a maybe 100-mile distance to the border of Lithuania, Latvia, and Poland. So there's been reports, these migrants have told themselves that they were bussed in to the border, and then the Belarusian army or border guards, they show them the way through the forest, because there's no border, there's no real fence. Now Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland are building a fence.
And Estonia too.
Yeah, Estonia. Estonia has, I think, a fence with the Russian border, but not with the.
No, that's the one they are fortifying.
Yeah, but Estonia doesn't have a border with. They have a border with Latvia, of course, so they are protected from the Belarusian thing. But yeah, it's the European Union's fault, and it's a funny situation because the European Union considers these migrants as an asset. They are diversifying and whatever. But for some reason, while we were in Vilnius, which is the capital of Lithuania, they had an EU meeting there, and even the EU said that, yeah, this is a hybrid operation, as they call it, what we call a gay op or a psy-op, that they bring these people and they force them here. But the European Union officially, they say that, yeah, we need these migrants because who will work, or we need workers or whatever. But for some reason, this is one thing that they oppose. And so these Eastern European countries, they are opposing immigration. Everybody knows about Hungary
and Greece,
but they belong to the European Union, which is forcing them to accept this. But for now, they are. This is very confusing to see the reaction. And while in Lithuania, I noticed some stickers in the city with a Telegram group called Atkirtis, which means resistance in Lithuanian. And they said that, okay, now the situation has calmed down, but the talks are in the Lithuanian government to house 40,000 of these people. And they are building refugee centers. And I believe this is becoming like a Greece 2.0, but closer to Northern Europe. And so this will become, I believe that in the end, this will become a hub for a new route for these people to enter.
Mm-hmm. And when we went to the camp, and I did most of the interviews with the help of one male migrant who spoke English pretty well, and he worked as an interpreter between me and the rest of the migrants. And when I got there, the migrants immediately started like lining up, like they wanted to talk to me because they, of course, think that telling their stories to the media might maybe help their cause or something like that. And I had this attitude that I knew in advance that they are going to blatantly lie to my face, but I'm going to stay polite, but I will ask tough questions. And that's how I did it. And I kept hearing
questions. What are some of the questions you had asked?
Like I would start always with the same things, like where are you from? Why did you leave? How did you get here? How did you get from your country to Belarus? How did you get from Minsk to this country or Lithuania? And where are you going? Are you going to apply for, or have you applied for asylum in Lithuania, or do you want to go to another European country? And I noticed that none of them had stories that would actually meet the criteria of getting an asylum. Like there was one guy who was claiming that his family was persecuted by ISIS, but there is absolutely no way that's true, because ISIS has been defeated and Iraq is such a huge country that you can just move to another location in the country where there are no remains of ISIS left and you can be completely safe. And this guy showed me like photos from his phone and claimed that ISIS had killed his brother. And he showed these photos that this is my hometown, and I understood that he's from Mosul, which is a big city in Iraq. And he also showed pictures from about of a man who was lying on a hospital bed in a very serious condition. But as he was like scrolling through the pictures, I noticed that the file names didn't match the file names that you would have if the photos had actually been taken with that phone. Like when you take a photo with the phone, the file name ends up being like DCIM and a series of numbers. But
timestamp.
yeah, the timestamp. But these had actual words either in Arabic or in English as file names. So they clearly hadn't been taken with that phone. They were downloaded offline, from online. And but I didn't mention it to him that I noticed it because I wanted to keep him talking. And then he was acting all sad about his brother's death, that he was devastated when they murdered his brother. But his act completely fell apart when I asked him, like, why didn't you go to Turkey for a safe country to live in? And then he just suddenly burst out laughing and said that life is in Turkey, it's so hard, all work, work, work. And he laughed when saying that. So suddenly the tragedy of the ISIS killed brother was completely forgotten, and oh no, of course I'm not going to go to Turkey. There you have to work for a living there. So his story fell apart completely. And then there were these older women, and they all had the same exact story. And either it's true because it's possible that it's true because it's in a way believable, or some human trafficker had told them to say so. And they said that I live in Iraq and all of my family lives in Europe or is dead, and I have no safety networks. I'm very sick and I can't get health services in Iraq. And I need to go to my son in Germany or something like that. They mentioned some other countries. And there was this one woman who said that she had called an ambulance in Iraq, but she can't get treatment and she's very ill. And she also mentioned when I asked her previously that how did she get to Lithuania, that she had walked in the forest for 7 hours. As a seriously ill old woman. That's a rough hike, 7 hours for a healthy person in the forest. So I really wonder how an ill old woman would do that. And then she said that she wants to go live with her son who already lives in Germany.
Yeah, all of her family was already in Germany, and she was the only one that was not allowed into Germany previously.
Yeah, so, and I asked her or told the interpreter that does she know that Lithuania won't let her leave here to Germany, that she either has to apply for an asylum here and she most likely will get a negative decision, or she will have to leave voluntarily back to Iraq. And then the woman said that, okay, if I can't get to Germany, then I will just go back to Iraq. So there in Lithuania at the migrant camp, she of course has received all the health services she needs, but suddenly she doesn't need those health services anymore if she can't get them exactly in Germany. The Lithuanian health services for her serious illnesses aren't good enough. So it was clearly just a case about just wanting to pick and choose a nice country to live in, and not really that she was in trouble. And as I mentioned, these stories might be true also, because as everybody noted, or everybody with half a brain noted back in 2015, all of the, or most of the migrants were like young men or middle-aged men, and there were very few elderly people, like senior citizens among them. I didn't see one disabled person among them, so they have just left them behind. And so I believe that it's very possible that these old women were telling the truth, that their families had just left them behind and left for a better life in Europe, and left their mother in Iraq. So it's completely possible.
They said that there's no healthcare in Iraq, and nobody's taking care of the elderly. But said, it's the same in Finland. We don't have any healthcare, and nobody's taking care of the elderly. So don't come to Finland, because it's better the weather is better there, so you don't lose anything. But also what we met were people that had already been to Europe. For example, this guy that had during the 2015 so-called migrant crisis, he had gotten to Sweden, and he was deported for some reason. He didn't tell me, but 2018, and now he's back, and he wants to go back to Sweden, and he has a brother in Helsinki. He gave me his phone, and he called his brother in Helsinki, Finland, and he said, my brother is sick. I said, yes, I know. I can see. But these people, they have been here. They have been. I don't know what you have to do to be deported from Sweden, because
it has to be something pretty serious, because
Probably
Sweden definitely doesn't easily deport people. Like, they don't even deport gang rapists.
Probably hate speech. Maybe he did a mistake. And when I asked him, okay, what did you do in Iraq? What's your job there? We spoke in bad Swedish, because he spoke some Swedish, and I barely know it. So, but I asked him what, and he didn't know those words. So he spent 4 years in Sweden, and he doesn't know the word work or job. And but with these people, it's very difficult to have a discussion, because, for instance, there's lots of them. And there was the shopping car was there, where it was a shopping day. So they were using their money, and actually they had lots of money, these people. I saw dollars. I think they were $100 bills, and they had European money. So they are not poor, and they had spent 6 weeks in that camp. And I doubt the Lithuanian government is giving them dollars. And they still had those bills. They were buying stuff there, so it was very hectic. And we should, a better way to interview these people is to sit down, have a proper translator, and ask them the real questions. Well, we ask the real questions, but the language barrier makes it so that it's easy for them to just switch to a lie if they are quick-witted enough to understand that if they say the truth, it's no thing. And also there were black people there, and I heard them speak French, and I, as a French-speaking guy, I wanted to talk to them, because the black French-speaking guys, they don't have the language barrier as these other Middle Eastern people, because they really speak the language. And I tried to talk to them, and many of them talked to me. And for example, one told me that, I've tried 3 times to travel from Morocco to Spain, and I've been always pushed back. So now I took the flight to Istanbul, and from there to Minsk, and now I'm here. I said, okay, so you have a passport? No, I was brought in by my step uncle. Okay, doesn't seem legit, but we'll trust you.
What was his premise for trying to enter Europe?
Some were from the Congo, and most of them were from Guinea. Actually, the place where there has been a coup on this Sunday, I think. I don't know if you've heard of the coup in Guinea. There's some people say it's a CIA operation, but and he told me that in Guinea, and I asked him, okay, what's the problem in Guinea? It's on the second part, the video with the thumbnail where I shake his hand, and he says that in Guinea they have many different ethnicities, and the political parties are aligned to these ethnicities, and when there's one winning party, they will start to persecute the other ethnicities, and there's people that have gone missing and so on. So I said,
I want to just, if I could really quick, Eunice, just jump in. This argument the anti-whites make often about different political factions, and they represent different clans in these countries. And when one clan comes to power, then other clans are getting persecuted. And then that is meant, of course, to white guilt us into lowering our defenses and allowing these people to enter our countries and with their biospheres irrevocably change the West to suit them, to suit what their instincts are, which, of course, are, I'm sure, all wonderful. But the bottom line is folks never stop to ask, did these political factions, these tribes or whatever it might be, did they engage in behavior? I mean, they're adults, right? They have agency. Did they engage in behavior that as a consequence results in them, if losing the contest for power, in some sort of persecution? So they are responsible for what ends up happening, and they have to live with the bed that they have made. I mean, that's the reality of it. So many arguments can be made, but this is one of the ones that just really irritates the hell out of me, because these folks, they backstab each other. They're corrupt as all hell in their countries, and that we can watch down, we can look and see this banana republic activity taking place. And then the vicious side that loses in contest with another vicious group or two or three or five, then they end up fleeing and saying, "Oh, you must take care of us because we are wrongly persecuted." Wrongly persecuted. What were you doing in your countries to come to this conclusion? How were you behaving in your countries to come to this conclusion? So anyhow, I just wanted to throw that in. It's a very irritating thing, but these interviews that you all are sharing is just absolutely remarkable, especially the information you've given about all of the money that they had. And of course, we know that the anti-whites run the printing presses of the West. And so it's not a big surprise that but it's still shocking in a way that they end up with handfuls of cash. Of course, how else are they going to be traveling from point A to point B? They got to eat, they got to sleep, they got to pay the people who are ferrying them, and all of this. This stuff is not free. They have to pay for these things. They have to pay, under the table, the people who smuggle them here or smuggle them there. So how do they get all the money? American currency, French, German, etc. Valuable currency. How do they come to these things when they claim to be so poor, so out of opportunities, so persecuted and on the run? Well, of course they do, because there are powerful anti-whites constantly feeding them money. Of course, that's just a claim. It could be CNN could tell us the opposite, and then that would be true. But it seems logically that these people are being funneled this money, because obviously if they had this kind of money in Iraq, for example, or these places where they come, they would be rich people. It's certainly in some place like Iraq. If you had all of that American currency, you would be a very wealthy person. You would not be fleeing the country. You would want to stay for the power of the wealth that you are holding. And then of course you have the scenarios where you have countries like I don't know, Qatar, some of these others, where you have gold-plated Lamborghinis held by some, and then the rest of them are hot-cotting in 7 to a bed, and they're always working, and they get a couple hours of sleep, and then they flee from scenarios again created by their own people, and then that is supposed to be the excuse for us to commit genocidal suicide on ourselves. Bravo, Sierra. We're not going to be putting up with that. I know, Mr. George, I thought it looked like you maybe had a question about maybe moving on to the COVID aspect of this in Europe.
Yeah, we are curious about that as well. I don't know if you had any parting thoughts on the migrant situation. Obviously, we're putting the links. I put the links in the YouTube chat twice, and those will be available when this is posted on the afterparty.tv. And of course, we might get some questions, but we do have a little time left in our part of the interview before we get to audience chat. And we did want to hear about, as mentioned at the beginning of the show, the varying responses to COVID. I mean, we hear things about Italy with a vax passport on the one hand, and on the other hand, we heard news of Denmark and now Sweden right now, or getting about to lift all COVID restrictions except for certain things at the borders, because that, of course, involves other countries. But for what they can deal with within their own borders, as far as I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but in Denmark and Sweden, life is pretty much going back to the way it was in 2019. Is that correct?
Yes, I think so. But I would just add shortly to the money thing. I believe that the people we are seeing in those camps, and most of these refugees that enter Europe, they are already privileged people in their countries. So they, of course, they before they were able to book the travel from their smuggler, they were very rich in their country, and for some reason they wanted to leave because where the white women at and so on. So that's even if they have money, and you don't see the Thai girls picking up trash in their countries. You don't see the Indian street prostitutes looking for asylum. You see only these wealthy migrants that are acting like, yeah, we are the huddled masses, take us in. But I don't know if there's more about that. The COVID situation, of course, yeah. I think Sweden never really had any real restrictions. They were never, for some reason, at the beginning of the thing, everybody was blaming Sweden, that what are you doing? But for some reason, it turned out to be a pretty okay thing to do. Denmark announced, I think, this week that on this Friday they would be ending all restrictions, and they will throw the COVID pass away. In the EU, the COVID pass was adopted on July the 1st, and it's a PDF file with a QR code that says that you were tested or you were vaccinated. And when we had to go to these camps, we needed to have a test. So we got our COVID pass, which says that you were tested on this date. So you have 3 days to cross all these borders. But yeah, the COVID restrictions, I don't know, France seems pretty advanced on this, because they have QR code readers even in cafes, and so in Finland and in the Baltics, they just maybe look at the PDF and they don't read the QR code, and they just okay, you're fine. But yeah, what does a COVID pass mean? It means that you have a digital identity, and with this, wherever you go, you can be checked on your health status. And in Finland, we don't really need this, because on every driver's license you have a code, not the QR code, but the older code that is on all products. So
barcode.
They could scan, the barcode. So they could scan only the barcode, and we have already a digital identity, so it's not a big deal. But the big deal is if they actually check if you are vaccinated, or if your test is less than 72 hours old. So that's. But in France, it's very active. All their demonstrations have been useless. Italy, I think, also is very fascist on this. But yeah, in the Nordic countries, it's yeah, okay.
Do either of you have a take or speculation on why we're seeing these varying responses?
Well, I think internal politics have a lot to do with it. So in different countries, there are different dynamics between the government parties, the opposition. So in some countries, you have a government of liberals, and they are supported by these COVID fanatic liberals in the population. So for those countries, it's easier to pass these completely draconian measures without little resistance, because they have the power to do that. And in Finland, for example, the opposition is almost a bigger problem than the government, because the opposition in Finland, which consists of these like moderate nationalists and neoliberals, conservatives, they from the very beginning took this stance on COVID that we need these very strict measures. And even though we have gotten a lot of new information, and there's no justification for these strict measures anymore, we have noticed that this disease isn't as nearly as bad as we feared in the beginning that it might be. And the mortality rates are extremely low. Hospitals are pretty much empty from COVID patients. But because the opposition has turned this into a political weapon, that if the government talks about loosening their restrictions, and there is even one more COVID death than there was last week, they will immediately attack the government from the opposition and say that, okay, this is your fault. So I think these internal dynamics of politics have a lot to do with what sort of policies different countries choose. And in Finland, the government, which is the most liberal government we have ever seen, said that they will get rid of all COVID restrictions during this winter and or autumn, and that once the vaccination coverage in the population is 80% or over that, they will get rid of the restrictions. So I think they are going to have to hold on to that promise, because if they don't, it'll look very bad on them because if they suddenly say that no, we cannot get rid of these restrictions, they would also at the same time have to admit failure, that okay, we didn't beat COVID with our measures and our policies, so we have to hold on to these restrictions. So I think in Finland we are going to the right direction, but it'll take time. So I think maybe 3-6 months and things will be better.
I have to correct you, because yesterday in the government they had this thing where they say that the restriction removal has an alternative if you ask for the COVID pass, and which would mean that if you are a restaurant or any business, you will, if you want to avoid the restrictions, you have to ask for the QR code, and they are even mentioning QR code readers in this. Look at this. And it will become like France here. So no, it's Finland is also going towards this. Denmark looks good, and Denmark always has been very based in immigration policies and all these things. But I fear that even though they have a big vaccination rate, and we have the same, I think, here in Finland, but probably sooner or later they will notice that, yeah, even the vaccinated get this virus, like in Israel, like actually in Finland today. There was a statistics article that said that, yeah, in central Finland, you have vaccinated people getting the virus. So this vaccine, it's super gay because it doesn't work. In my days, a vaccine was to prevent you from contracting a virus or a disease, but nowadays it's just let me get the QR code.
Is there any news headlines from other European countries about Denmark going this direction, calling Denmark dangerous or something like that? Is there propaganda against that decision Denmark made?
I haven't seen those, but maybe Tiina.
No, I haven't seen that either. And in Finland, even where we have extremely liberal media and we have no real conservative mainstream media, the media has been very neutral about this. And even our liberal media has started to wonder about our government's COVID policies and question them. That like there was this one opinion piece in a big newspaper that why does it seem as if our government wants this COVID crisis to never end? So even the media is starting to get sort of sick of the government playing off of this crisis. And as I said, the internal politics have a lot to do with it. And in Finland, the minister who is in charge of this sort of matters is Krista Kiuru, and she's very attention and power hungry. And even though she's not the prime minister, she is by other politicians mockingly called Prime Minister Kiuru, because she holds so much power in her party that she's like the actual person using power, and she's the one telling the Prime Minister Sanna Marin what to do. So I think why our government has wanted to keep this going is largely due to this Krista Kiuru's influence, that she wants the spotlight to be on her. She wants to be on these talk shows every week. She wants to be on news every day talking about COVID. And if this crisis goes away, so goes the attention and the spotlight, and she will become just one average minister in a cabinet, and the attention will go back to the more media sexy ministers like Sanna Marin, who is this young, pretty prime minister who has been praised by liberals worldwide.
The Finnish COVID rate, death rate, and all this, it has nothing to do with the government restrictions or anything. It's just because our culture is such that we have been social distancing forever, even before this. So that's the only reason Actually, the government has never closed the borders, and if they had closed the borders, we would be even better, because mostly all of these variants and all of the cases have come from abroad. The first case was in January 2020. It was a Chinese tourist in Lapland who brought this disease, and back in January 2020. Our CDC said, "Oh, this disease does not transmit to people; it's only to Chinese." So no, they downplayed it, like in your country also. They said Fauci. Nancy Pelosi said that, go to Chinatown. Trump is a racist and whatever. So they downplayed it. We were wearing masks before Finland even had masks. But then now this goes on forever, and we are blamed because we believed the thing. But of course, in the beginning, it was clearly very mortal or lethal, this disease. You saw the videos from Italy, people dying at such a rate that they couldn't even cremate them. So it was, in the beginning, it was probably serious, and it was saying to be careful. And at that time, I would have accepted a 1 month lockdown, a total lockdown, like in Australia, and close the borders and let's sort it out. But they went with this And now we are here with the QR codes. If you go here, you need to show your pass, and it's super gay. It's it's funny that you can travel from Afghanistan or Iraq without a passport, but we have to show a stupid QR code to this.
I love that. I have one more brief media related question, and then Jason will tell us what we have from the chat. Just quickly, you mentioned the protests. Now, I've seen some footage as well. Tremendous demonstrations in France, especially, and other countries as well, ongoing. London had these marches, these freedom rallies or marches for freedom at intervals during the summer that were tremendous as well. Do you see those reported on by any mainstream media outlets in Europe, or is it all just more underground sources? Because here it's being very suppressed. Actually, my friend John, some of you may know John Bruce Leonard in Italy, has told me as well. We had a private conversation how there's a lot of pushback in Italy as well. But if you looked at the mainstream media only, you would never know that. So how did you guys get the news of the protests and your take on that?
Well, it's difficult to say because I'm so fed up with mainstream media that I don't watch it, I don't read it. I just scroll telegrams, far right groups, and so I can see them there. I don't look at our Finnish media; it's full of lies. And in Finland, we have had some protests with maybe 500 people, which is pretty big here. But the police have been very, very violent. They have been hitting people, and it's like you've seen also the videos from the Netherlands with the water tanks against these white people. They always attack white. The police, the army, they are our enemy because they attack us. They never go to the suburbs in Europe where the migrants are burning cars and raping women and doing all this stuff. The police, they are afraid. They're not even afraid. They are anti-white police officers, and that's all we have here. And when they see that you have Finns protesting, when they see French people protesting, they will go hard on them. And but I don't know about the mainstream media. Maybe Tiina knows about the what has been the. Well, probably, yeah. The mainstream media probably says that this is a super spreader event, and you have to cancel this. And these are the far right, Putin-funded racist neo-Nazi super corona denialists that are spreading this virus. Unlike these very fine BLM people that.
What I've seen is if they acknowledge it, it's many times smaller is what they're reporting. You'll have 5,000, 10,000 people somewhere, and they'll say there were a few hundred, something like that.
They do this in Finland. They have always, it has always been this. They always downplay our events. And
of course.
The Antifa was super. You saw the Bolsonaro thing in Finland. They said, the Bolsonaro guys were the leftists protesting. So
I saw it on Instagram yesterday. Someone posted a speech of Bolsonaro, Brazilian's president. I think it's president there, addressing a tremendous crowd and saying, "We're done with this." I mean, it is waking a lot of people up. There's a lot of pushback, but again, you wouldn't know it. I didn't know if you guys were maybe aware of certain European outlets that are more mainstream that are acknowledging it, but doesn't sound like it. At any rate, Jason is going to let us know what the chat has been asked.
Yes, well, and I have a couple of questions myself. Of course, I have to say, it's not just perfunctory, but I have to say that we go with whatever the World Health Organization says about COVID-19, and CNN and the Centers for Disease Control. If they change their mind every day of the week, then we change our mind with whatever they say. So that is the opinion of this channel when it comes to things like COVID-19 or actually anything else. But we will share what we've heard others say. And this has been actually a very interesting conversation today because this is firsthand information of the border crossers who are making their way through of course, Southern Europe and northward to finding the countries that offer the most social benefits, social welfare programs. And they complain about things, as Tiina said, like, why stop someplace where we'd have to work hard for a living when we can just go someplace where everything's just handed over to us? Why would we do that? Because we only have so many handfuls of cash. I mean, what do you expect us to be able to live on these handfuls of cash forever? But folks, if you have any questions to add or financial gifts before we tap out in about 10 minutes, get them in now. Make sure you tag me as No White Guilt on all of the platforms, any of the ones that you're watching this on. And of course, you can jump on over to Entropy as well. We have one financial gift so far, and I kind of already answered it, from the great Azimuth Clark. Financially gifting $1 over here on Cash App. Thank you so much, brother. The URL for Cash App and Entropy is in the description below, folks. The great Azimuth Clark asks, do we have a preferred term for migrants, illegals, and this sort of thing? Border crosser. They are merely border crossers. These other terms, certainly illegal, no human being is illegal. So those are strikes for channels. And they are merely border crossers here.
The AP says they are undocumented migrants.
They're what?
Undocumented migrants.
Undocumented.
Yeah, that's the AP Associated Press guideline. It's like when you write black, you write it with a capital B. If you write white,
it's lowercase.
It's a small. Yeah.
So there's a question for you. I don't know if can you see the live chat about a person? I don't know who this person is. Penty
on YouTube or D Live?
On YouTube. Penty Linkola.
Okay.
Do you know who that is?
Well,
Pentti Linkola, he used to be this hardline sort of eco-fascist in Finland, and he is pretty well known outside of Finland for the books that he has written and his ideology. So he was this sort of OG Green, and he used to be in the Green Party, but he was strongly opposed to mass immigration to Europe, strongly opposed to the population explosion and humanitarian aid that is feeding the population explosion. So he was like the base and red-pilled Green, Pentti Linkola.
Yeah, and he died recently.
Oh.
And,
well,
yeah, he was. He said that we cannot take any refugees. If they drown, and that's it. And
he had this sort of saying about the mass immigration during the 2015 migrant crisis, and he said that if you are in a boat, lifeboat that is already filled with people, and there are people in the sea who are trying to get in the boat and they would sink it, what is the humane thing to do? The humane thing to do is to cut off the arms that are clinging to the boat and trying to drown everybody in it. So he was very base, and he understood what the consequences of mass migration to Europe would be.
So he had a very short career as a stand-up comedian. I see. Gotcha.
Well, he was very old when he died. I think this year or last year. And
I think he was like maybe 75 or something like that when he died.
Oh, he's a young man. He's a young man.
Yeah.
But that's a good long life to live. You're right about that, Eunice. I have a question about the economic disparities vis-a-vis COVID. Because you have countries like France, as you're talking about, Germany, Italy, that are implementing these severe restrictions. And of course, this is going to inhibit business, the operation of the markets. And then you have the other countries like Sweden, of course, where they have fewer restrictions. is anybody keeping an eye on the consequences economically? Small business owners, restaurant, bar owners, hostel owners, things like this across Europe. Are these businesses really suffering in these countries, or are they receiving payments from the governments to keep them afloat for now? Or any word on that at all?
Well, the government's response to that, both in Finland and other countries, is mainly theoretical. That they say that yes, we understand the suffering of these business owners and laid off employees, and we will give financial support, but the financial support that has been given hasn't gone to like the right address. It hasn't been given to the small businesses that really need it. It has been given to like a large company, like consulting firms and businesses like that that don't even need any COVID support. So the government is basically just saying, oh, we feel your pain, but doing nothing about it to help them out. And they are also just taking more debt all the time for the costs of the COVID measurements or measures. For example, in the city of Vantaa, which is one of the biggest cities in Finland, the price of COVID testing was the same as the price of running all of the public health centers and hospitals in the city during the same year. So it's expensive business. Tens of millions is spent just on testing. So it's absolute madness how they are spending this money. And it's easy to spend the taxpayer money because you think they think that it just comes out of somewhere, and when they run out of money, they just take more debt because they are a liberal government. They don't really understand the fact that you sometimes have to pay that debt back, and if you take enough debt and you cannot really pay it back at the right rate, then your credit rating of Finland will go down, and it will have a serious financial effects on the entire country. So that's what you get when you have a government of young women, young liberal women who have zero understanding of basic economics.
Yeah, with the money they spent on these stupid tests, they could have built tens of new hospitals.
Wow.
And it feels absurd, that when we went to the mandatory COVID tests, when we returned from the Baltic countries, it was just walking in there, and then they gave us a number slip, and we sat down for a couple of minutes. Then they called us in, and the test was taken, and we were talking imagine if getting to the dentist or the doctor's office was this easy when you actually are sick and need health services. Finland, so if you are healthy, you get the COVID test just like that. The resources seem to be endless. But if you need a dentist appointment, you have to wait in line for months.
6 months at least.
Yeah.
Jeez, my God.
This is the Nordic countries.
That's in the Nordic countries. I hope Americans who continue to glamorize this idea of socialized medicine hear that, because we have so many who think, well, no, it should all be just socialized because it works so well in the Nordic countries. And I hear these stories all the time. Yeah, I had a cavity and severe pain, and my appointment was 6 months out. Okay. All right. Well, folks, we've come to the end of TAP today. It's a shame, but everybody loves Tiina and Eunice, and we love having you guys on. We'll have to do this more often to get more info, because there's so much coming in and happening in Europe, and you all are the absolute access to everything going on there. We do have one more question that I'm going to pose to you both as I get your final thoughts from you, and you let folks know where they can find you. And that is a financial gift of $3 from the great K. Max McDonald. And so with your final thoughts, and let folks know where they can find you, please answer this. Will the Awakening Conference happen in the next year? And will Jason be a featured speaker there?
Yes, I believe it will happen, but because the COVID situation is still so unpredictable, it's difficult to start planning because we already had to postpone the event twice. So we need to be certain that when the conference is held, that people can actually easily get into the country, so that foreign visitors can get to join the event, and that there won't be any sudden restrictions that would stop us from holding the conference. So yes, it will happen, but we will have to wait for the COVID restrictions to be in a stable enough state that we can start the planning with confidence that it will actually happen and that people from abroad can easily come to Finland.
Yeah, because the restrictions that we have had for these events have been varying. Sometimes it's unrestricted, sometimes it's max 50 people in an event.
Or 10 people.
Sometimes even 10, or even 6 was the minimum, I think. So the thing is that it's easy to organize an event, or it's not easy, but basically it is easy. The hardest part is to get the people from abroad to be able to fly in, because maybe it's even easier to fly into this country than to organize the event, because the borders, open borders, is Finland's biggest value for these female government people.
But I think that probably next spring or early or late winter might be a good time for it. And
I think the summer is the best, because the COVID numbers go down.
Yes, and summer would be good, because during summer the COVID rates are always low. And I think the restrictions probably will be lifted by then, at least inside the country. And also it will be much nicer for the visitors to see Finland in the summertime, when it's at its most beautiful and you get to see the midnight sun and all that.
Yeah, midnight sun and everything.
Yes, I'm very eager to see that. Well, your final thoughts and where folks can find you both.
Okay, so I'm mostly on Telegram, on Gab, on VK, and that's it mostly. So gab.com/jlokka is my account, and t.me/jlokka. We have another Telegram account, t.me/monokulttuuri. It's mostly for alerts for the upcoming live streams we have. Tiina is on Twitter still. I lost my Twitter account. Twitter.com/SwanofTuonela. And what else do you have? Where can people find us? Osi's writing them on DLive.
Yes, I put that there in the chat, our DLive address and my Twitter account, because I often also tweet in English, so that's the best place for foreigners to follow me, because for example on Facebook and VK I only write in Finnish, but and also the super chatter Kevin McDonald's was also on Twitter asking about our English live streams, and wanted them back. And our original plan was to return to them after the election, maybe like during early July. But then I got pretty ill, and most of July went into like a recovery from the illness, and then we had the 2-week trip to the Baltics. So we weren't really able to get back to our usual schedule. But now that we are back home and we don't have any major trips planned, it's easier for us to get back to our usual schedule. So I can promise that next week. Yes, let's do out of line next week.
Why not? Our last English live stream was from Lithuania, so it's you can KMax. You can find it on Odysee, odyssey.com/@jlokka. Link menus. There's 2 parts. You can check that. That's in English. Broken English with the migrants, but I recommend it. Those videos don't have enough views. They had lots of views on DLive, but check those out. So if someone can send a link.
Yes, we will make sure that it's available, and don't have to apologize for the broken English. I think in all English-speaking countries, we all are very familiar.
No, but I mean the migrants had it.
Yes, yeah, exactly. That'll be just like home, unfortunately. But thank you so much to both of you for being here. It's been marvelous. Mr. George, your thoughts?
Well, I was just going to say, if anyone's listening to the replay on YouTube, when you go to the afterparty.tv and search Tiina and Eunice, you'll see this episode come up, and we'll have all of their current links on the post for this particular episode. So I just want to say thank you. It's always a pleasure to speak with both of you. And I second what Jason said. I hope we get to speak some more. And thank you, as Elaine, our friend Elaine Sabatino said in the YouTube chat, thank you for your courage of walking into these migrant camps, border crosser camps, but officially known as migrant camps.
And I hope that we'll see it at the Awakening conference. It would be...
Would love to.
It would
fantastic.
Be nice to see in person and have some.
I agree. I don't know what travel under COVID is going to bring, but we can hope for the best. And I would love to. I would love to see all of you and meet a lot of people as well. But for me, just briefly, my site is thegreatorder.com. New since last week, since the last time we did TAP 8 days ago, last Thursday when Oliver Semiagog was on. I have released a video for a song that came out in June, relatively new song, but not newest song. But I wanted to put a video to it, one last blast of summer. So Horizon, it's just a blast of some inspiring, adventurous, romantic imagery that I think if you need a break from what is going on in the world, you might like that. So that is on my channels, the Horizon mashup image music video. Also last week, The Girl from Galway Bay came out, not an official production, but a new song and just me singing and playing to camera. First performance, trying to do some different kinds of releases with the music. I'm sure I'll do a full-on studio recording of that one day, but wanted to get a performance out to you all. And also, speaking of music, still pushing the relatively new What's In Us video, because that video is really about all the different awakenings going on with COVID, with the anti-white agenda, and some other things. I get some very strong, passionate, positive responses to that video. So especially if you move in other circles and related circles, conservative, MAGA, those types of things. A lot of people have taken it up. I've had some MAGA people with big followings reshare it. Jason and I are very keen to talk about this all the time, that we have our core here, we have our base here, but our message and how we speak is something that is on the tip of the tongues of many, many other people out there. This isn't just a YouTube niche genre or echo chamber. And just like with Jason's lexicon or how we approach it, that either the news and framing the world, I'm doing that with music, and this particular video for What's In Us is a big step in that direction. So if it resonates with all of you, or maybe this is news to some of you, go to my site or go to my channel, check out What's In Us, the song that came out 6 weeks ago or so, and the music video for it. And it has some powerful imagery. It's very of the moment, and you can help spread it. So I appreciate that. Other than that, we'll talk to you soon. Jason, take us out for the evening. Everyone have a good and safe weekend as well.
If I might interrupt, you are also present in the White Art Collective project, which is very good to provide music that is oriented like this, and to provide an alternative to to the radio or other stuff. So that's
100%. Yeah. And you mentioned you played some Hireth before. Hireth actually did the illustration I used in the graphic of that song, What's in Us. So yeah, we're all supporting each other. I'm very involved in White Art Collective. It's there's a center of gravity forming here, culturally, politically, everything, that we're very proud of and very happy about.
And there's this song, Love Your People, from White Art Collective. I don't remember the artist name. It was some man, but I absolutely love that song.
Jeff Winston.
Yes, Jeff Winston, yes.
Yeah, it's a fantastic piece. Yeah, truly, we are indeed the white positive sphere, what we're doing here in service to white well-being, with the psychological tools, the psychological defense for the psychological warfare waged against us, wed with the creation of our own culture by way of all of the different realms of artistry, and of course these socio-political discussions that we have delving into things happening all around the world, all across the West. Very important for us, and very important that we frame these things in our story, where we are the hero, where we are standing on the moral high ground. I want to give a big thank you to everybody who was here today and participated in the live chat. A big thank you to all you wallflowers, and of course to our financial gifters today. Thank you both so very much. And Mr. Fornull, was Raymond here for a while, also doing some moderation? A big thank you to the both of them for moderating the live chat today. That is a very important job. Of course, a huge thank you to the great Mr. Jared George for all the work he does, and the wonderful Tiina and Eunice. Thank you both for being here. We're going to have you back soon. Folks, we love you all, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.